Hi, I'm Mitchell Bloom. I've been a costume designer in New York for many years, working on clothing for Broadway film, television, opera, and dance. And I've put together a 45-minute talk called Adventures in Costume Research, full of photos and clips showing how costume concepts go from script to stage or screen. Since 1988, as an associate designer, I have been collaborating with some of the most distinguished costume designers in the industry. My job involves breaking down scripts, researching period and setting, swatching fabric buttons and trim, and suggesting solutions to problems. I've given this presentation to college theater classes, libraries, and arts groups across the U.S. Here are highlights from a recent online lecture. If you'd like to book this talk, you can find my contact information at the end. Moving on to theater. Even Sears catalogs are stylized. Real people have uneven hems and wrinkles and messy hair. Photographs of real people are sometimes the best resource. I read the script for a play by Neil Simon called Louis the Gangster, later retitled Lost in Yonkers, and I thought, this is my family, a Jewish family in Greater New York during World War II. And the two boys in the play were the same age as my father and my uncle. I gave this photo to the designer Sancho Laquasto, and it became primary research for the costumes. They even copied my great-grandmother's hair. Here's the Broadway production with Tony winners Kevin Spacey, Irene Worth, and Mercedes Ruehl. Since there was a souvenir book and costume description in the Samuel French edition, my family's been copied all over the world, including Israel, Australia, and Japan. Les Liaisons Dangereuses with Ben Daniels and Laura Linney. She's my 1 degree of separation from Kevin Bacon, in case you were wondering. Designed by Katrina Lindsay with hair and wig design by Paul Huntley. Based on patterns, paintings, photographs of real 18th century clothes, embroidery, details of pockets, collars, and cuffs. Here's a Bible page with fabric swatches, button and trim samples for Ben Daniels as Valmont. Attention to undergarments for proper silhouette. The general manager said, I've never paid that much for a dress. The theater company had only done contemporary or 20th century plays before. And I replied, just the corset, panniers, and petticoat are more money than you've ever spent before, and you don't even have a dress yet. The Village, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, with costumes by Ann Roth. This was the film I worked on with the most custom-made clothes, as we were creating a 1900 isolated community. By 1900, there certainly was sophisticated fabric printing, but would this insular subsistence community have had those resources? I had gotten to know Miles White, the designer of Broadway's original production of Carousel, seen here, and he copied butter mold patterns and did hand printing on dresses, and I suggested we do the same. In addition, we also did natural plant dyeing, hand painting, and silk screening with twigs and berries. Bryce Howard and Cherry Jones, Sigourney Weaver, William Hurt, and Bryce again with Joaquin Phoenix. And color was a very important plot point. The characters consider yellow a safe color, and I think we made 27 identical dresses and capes for Bryce for adventures in the woods. And they consider red a bad color. Cold Mountain, filmed in Romania and directed by Anthony Minghella, who also directed Madama Butterfly. The designer Ann Roth has the gift of telling the progression of a character through their clothes. Nicole Kidman starts the film in silk brocades with lace and fancy hats. But with her father's death and the start of the Civil War, her character comes down in the world and her clothes become worn and dirty. To quote Roth, her clothes just fall away. In a way, her character evolves piece by piece, and you can see it by what she wears. The bodice of one dress over the hitched up skirt of another dress, then her father's coat over a ragged skirt, She transforms again as she switches to boots and pants. She evolves from fragile and incompetent to sensible and self-sufficient. And in the end, she's in working women's clothes. And here's the curtain call showing tie-dye, silk screening, hand printing, hand painting, and flocking. The Metropolitan Opera is a repertory house, so there are requirements that you wouldn't have on a Broadway show. That's the same show 8 times a week. For instance, we might have a dress rehearsal for La Boheme Monday morning, Carmen on stage Monday night, a huge night gang, since there's no automation, strike that set, and they set up La Boheme again for Tuesday morning dress rehearsal, and then Turandot on stage Tuesday night. The sets and costumes are constantly handled and moved, so they get a lot of wear and tear. After every performance on Broadway, the costumes go back to the same dressing room, hanger, or hat block. At the Met, we have a chorus of 80, and for Meistersinger, we double the male chorus. And for Porgy and Bess, we have a separate all-black chorus. The 2 in-house costume shops have over 150 people at one time: drapers and tailors, cutters, stitchers, milliners, craftspeople, cobbler, dyers, and project managers. I want to discuss how black and white films were used as research for 2 operas, both designed by Santo Loquasto. Salome was inspired by films of the 1930s and 40s, Sidney Greenstreet in Casablanca for Herod, and Marlene Dietrich in Blonde Venus for Carita Mottola's Dance of the Seven Veils. Johnny Schicchi, directed by Woody Allen for LA Opera, he wanted the opera to look like an Italian neorealistic film from the 1940s. Among others, we looked at Visconti, Rossellini, and De Sica. Serious film dramas as research for a comic opera, Johnny Schicchi. I worked extensively with the Paul Taylor Dance Company. As we were working in repertory, Santo made a point of varying the designs and colors so the audience got 3 very different looks in an evening. We only had Paul Taylor and the lighting designer Jennifer Tipton involved in the creative process. On a play or a film, you have multitudes of opinions. Funny papers, novelty songs of the 1950s. Paul, Santo, and Jennifer had determined that the only color would be in the lighting, and that the costumes would be unisex and black and white. But Santo didn't want to do black shirts and white pants or party-colored checkerboard. So I said, well, if you were Willa Kim, you'd make the men's costumes black in the front and white in the back, and the reverse for the women. When I told Willa that, she said, oh yeah, that's exactly what I would have done. And it worked beautifully as it created a flickering effect when they danced. Piazzolla Caldera tango music, Santo wanted to look like the women were wearing stockings with elastic lace garters at the top. We knew that wouldn't work given the strenuous choreography, so I suggested we dye stretch fabric the dancer's skin tone and make bike shorts with a band of stretch lace at the bottom. The dancer put on a pair of sheer black pantyhose, then the bike shorts to give the illusion of stockings, then dance trunks over the bike shorts, and finally the dress. And a Broadway show, I forgot to say, an important part of my job is the budget. And I am responsible. Lately, as on Dangereuse, I came within like 35 cents or something of my budget. You know? And sometimes I've gone over. I mean, Mary Poppins in London. So they took the budget in pounds sterling and converted to dollars, which never works. It's always more expensive here. And then the director and the designer wanted in Jolly Holiday in London, only Mary and Bert changed their clothes. And in New York, everybody changed their clothes twice. And so there were toys that came to life and all of this stuff that just cost a fortune, and living statues. And so that is part of my job, and they will hold me to it. But at the Met, fortunately, at the Met, I don't really have to do the budget. I mean, I am conscious of what things cost, and I try to be fiscally responsible. Um, and no, I mean, they have a big pot of money, and if somebody comes along and they don't fit, they don't fit the clothes, then we have to make something. And I mean, singers cancel a lot because you can't post on it. If if you're Bernadette Peters and you have a cold, or Julie Harris and you have a cold, and you can kind of act that your character has a cold or something. In the opera, you can't do that. And as I said, trying to recreate something or fill in a costume for a production that's 30 years old is very tricky. I mean, what we're doing a lot of this now with these revivals, which is trying to find different fabrics and different styles that can seamlessly blend in with the existing production. So in a way, a lot of the work has to be invisible, that nobody will be able to look at Ella Sear and know which of the 12 dresses are new and which aren't. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of what do you call it? It's a humbling experience.
For more information or to schedule a lecture, you can reach me by phone at 917-232-0811 or by email at boomboom403@cs.com. Once again, the talk runs 45 minutes and the title is Adventures in Costume Research.